everybody to the meeting of the Education Commission on March 23rd, 2023. It's good to be in the large community room, and whoever may be joining us on Zoom, welcome to you as well, or watching later on YouTube. So we're going to begin our meeting. And as a reminder, we will have room in our meeting for public comment, and the public is welcome to address the commission on items that are not listed on the agenda, but within the commission's jurisdiction during the general public comment period. This will be an opportunity for the public to comment. There will be an opportunity for the public to comment on other agenda items at the time they're discussed. And as always, you can email comments in on the day of the meeting before 4 p.m., or you can log on to Zoom. And if you are on Zoom and want to make a public comment, you can use the raise hand feature. And if someone wishes to make public comment in this room, they can do so. So, Trustee Mayo. And we are going to begin by we have called the meeting to order. And let's take a roll call. Jeff, do I call these out when we're in person, or do you do it? Great. So I'm here, Lydia. Here. Jennifer, Lema, Aaron let me know that he was not able to make it. Jason also let me know he's not able to make it. Troy, Ashley, Jennifer Moore, Marissa, and Lindsay. Welcome. Grateful for you all being here. And we're going to begin or move on to our third agenda item, which is public comment. So again, any members of the public may speak on any item that is not on the agenda, but within our commission scope. Is there anyone here who would like to make a public comment, either in person or electronically via Zoom?
I do have a hand raised. There we go. I do have a hand raised on Zoom. It is Anna Simo. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing, but I will turn your microphone on and you will have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Yes? No?
Yes.
Oh, yes. Excellent. Sorry, the screen turned off and showed just my name in black, so I couldn't see you. So my name is Anna Simo, and I wrote a little statement, hopefully, so I stay on track. I'd like to bring to your attention an issue that spans the city of Pleasant Hill and Mount Diablo Unified School District jurisdictions. It affects our children's safety and their access to education. The city of Pleasant Hill employs 9 crossing guards on a yearly basis. In the July 2022 City Council meeting, it was agreed that after the school year, traffic engineering options would be considered instead of approving the full 9 crossing guards. This has me and many other parents in our city very concerned. I have a kindergartner at Sequoia Elementary and 2 other children who will age into that school. Sequoia is a school of choice of over 600 students right next to a middle school, which has over 900 students. Patterson and Boyd is the main intersection leading to the schools, and currently there's a crossing guard there. This intersection is extremely crowded and busy. Traffic is backed up through major streets during pickup and drop off. There's space for less than 15 cars to park on the street for drop off, so many children walk to school, and most often parents are dropping their kids off down the street to walk themselves through that intersection. In fact, it's my understanding that last year when the crossing guard was out for a day, a child was hit by a car at that intersection and sustained injuries. Sequoia is the example I know personally, but I assume there are many examples of our city intersections such as this, which have been made safe by crossing guards. So I'd like to appeal to the Education Commission in accordance with your mission to advocate for quality education to support this very important cause, helping our kids get to school safely so they can be ready to learn. So please don't let us lose our crossing guards, especially at Sequoia or any other school for that matter. That's it. That's all I got.
Thank you so much, Anna. This is an issue that is not on our agenda tonight, but has been a number of times in the last year and will be again. And we are grateful for your public comment. I am grateful for your public comment.
Thank you.
And I'm not sure if our guest is wanting to make a comment or nope. Okay.
Feel free to join us at the table. Otherwise, you're Wonderful. Okay, with no further public comment that I'm aware of, we'll pause 1 second to ensure that we are indeed ready to close public comment.
There are no other comments.
All right, so I'll now close public comment, and we will continue on with the next item on our agenda, which is to approve the minutes for the meeting of February 23rd, 2023. Everyone on the commission should have received these in your email. So if you have a chance, if you have had a chance to look them over, we can note any changes that are needed or amendments to those minutes. So we'll pause for a brief chance to glance at those before entertaining a motion to approve those minutes. Are there any changes anyone feels like we need to make to the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes from 2/23/23.
Second.
I'll third.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I think we have a few people that will need to abstain because of missing that meeting. So we'll ask for affirmative votes. We'll see if anyone votes against the approval. And then if anyone needs to abstain, just let us know. So all in favor of approving the minutes? Anyone against approving the minutes? And does anyone need to abstain? Okay, Jeff, you got that?
Who made the motion in the second, please?
Lydia made the motion.
Thank you.
Terrific. Okay, that motion carries. We're gonna move on to agenda item 5, which is a discussion on an upcoming meeting, which is the Pleasant Hill School District Task Force meeting. So this meeting, Jeff, you may be able to provide us a bit more information, or Jennifer, someone on the history of the Pleasant Hill School Task Force. But it has kind of been a longstanding task force that has included members of Pleasant Hill City Council, as well as members, trustees on the MDUSD School Board, and a variety of other officials and representatives from the city of Pleasant Hill. And the Education Commission has been invited to these meetings, but it is not our hosted meeting. And the task force has not met for several years. There's been turnover in superintendents and a pandemic that happened that kind of resulted in kind of the pausing of the regular meetings of the task force. But there is a meeting on the calendar for next Tuesday. I believe it's at 9 a.m. So it's a daytime meeting. And as far as I am aware at this point, there will be 2 members of Pleasant Hill Pleasant Hill City Council, 2 members, 2 trustees on the MDUSD board, as well as a variety of city officials and staff. And the agenda, as far as I know, has not been posted. I don't know if it's been finalized. I did pass along a number of issues that have been reoccurring themes that we have talked about as an education commission to recommend for inclusion on this task force agenda meeting, though I haven't seen a final agenda, so I'm not sure exactly what is on the agenda. And then we are all invited to be part of this, to attend this meeting, but because of Brown Act, we cannot all participate in this meeting because it's not an education commission meeting. So everyone is welcome to attend, but we are not, and I believe we can all also give public comment at this meeting, but
It's a situation where you have to not appear to be acting as a commission. If you are there as a resident of Pleasant Hill, you can comment. But if you are all sitting together and you're all having a discussion, and then you get up and you all make comment, that would constitute a Brown Act violation. In general, when you're attending another public meeting, you are attending as a private citizen. You're not attending as a commissioner unless you've been specifically asked there to represent your commission, like when Dave will be asked to come give the annual report, or Jennifer did that last year. So like Lindsay, when you were at the city council meeting last week, you identified yourself as an education commissioner. You just need to make sure you follow that up by saying, but I'm not here speaking on behalf of the commission. I'm here speaking on behalf of myself and my family. So that's really the main thing that keeps us clear of Brown Act issues. And then as far as the commission is, or the task force is concerned, it's appointed by the mayor. I did, speak to the city manager when this was coming up and made sure that Dave was looped in on everything so that the education commission was represented. And as a matter of fact, I don't think the agenda has been posted yet. However, I did see a draft of it today, and most of the points that you brought that I shared with the city manager last week are on that agenda.
Terrific.
So quite a few of them are on there.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So this is a discussion item because this task force will hopefully continue to meet, and it is a task force that we can encourage to have certain things on the agenda. So if I'm just going off my memory, I think I said that we have frequent conversations about school crossing guards and traffic safety, and I think this task force connecting the city council and the MDUSD school board would be a wonderful place for that to be a discussion item. We talked about school infrastructure, particularly we've had conversations as it relates to weather, which continues to be a very serious thing that we're dealing with, and aging school infrastructure is a huge concern for many parents in Pleasant Hill and beyond. I think there was another thing that I said we frequently, I think school culture and bullying, anti-racist work, and the kind of in light of the district-wide town hall meeting and just other conversations we've had over the last few years. I think that was also on the list that I encouraged the task force to consider on their agenda. But we can, it sounds like there's a draft of an agenda but not finalized. So if there's other things that feel very pertinent, there's a chance that they may make their way into next week's meeting, or we can recommend them for future task force meetings. So let's just open invitation to talk about items that would be appropriate for this kind of task force meeting, or other questions about the school district task force. Yeah.
Hi, Lydia Galley. I'm just curious because you said that the task force hadn't met or convened prior or the last few years. What is their job, or what is their task opposed to what do we do? And why is there two of us? And should there just be one, or can we work together? Because I thought we as Education Commission were sort of supposed to be a conduit or an advocate for Pleasant Hill schools with the district. That proved to not be so fortuitous or fruitious during like any sort of talks or anything. So are they supposed to have some sort of direct line or something? What's the difference, I guess?
I'm looking at Jeff. Jeff's looking at me. I'll give Jennifer also probably knows some of the history of it.
Yeah. So
Great.
I know the history of it. And I think, so the way I saw it function in the past is that all of us that were on the commission were really those direct lines of communication with Pleasant Hill school personnel, like those administrators, those teachers in the schools. And then when we would bring those concerns that were coming up to this particular meeting that had like this much smaller sort of face-to-face with district officials, right? So it was a way to sort of, just like you've been talking about, coalesce those concerns across schools and have a really sort of direct small group conversation with city officials and district officials on those specific issues. And when there was something, to your point, that was very specific and was like a like very direct ask, that was a collaboration between the city and the district, that seemed to be the meeting where there was a lot of progress made in like resolving that issue. So a couple of things that I can remember historically that were issues was, for example, there used to be part of Pleasant Hill that was in the Ignacio Valley sort of feeder pattern instead of the College Park feeder pattern, but it was it was a choice. So those students had to, at the end of their middle school years, proactively choose which feeder pattern they wanted to be into. And like 99% of them chose to go into the College Park feeder pattern instead of Ignacio Valley. And I don't know why it was that way historically, but that was like a very specific issue that was worked out in that meeting of like, okay, we're going to resolve this so they don't no longer have to choose, like they're just going to be in College Park feeder pattern. So like that was an example. Another thing that had come up before was like residency verification. We already talked about today, like some schools that are choice schools in Pleasant Hill or students traveling between schools in Pleasant Hill that impacted traffic patterns, right? So that was a city concern and a district concern. And then like, how do you verify when students, like what schools they're supposed to go to? So prior to this, that body meeting, they were only verifying at entrance at kindergarten. And there wasn't verification happening, which it does now in 7th grade and 9th grade. But that was a direct outcome of this meeting happening between the district and the city, and like how can we solve some of this problem? And so they added those verifications. So those are 2 examples I can think of. So I think that the meeting is like a really good way to have that conversation with the officials. And I think for all of us, like if the meeting continues, it's a great meeting to go to have that real face-to-face time. And it's a real great meeting to go to with a very specific ask. Like, this is what, will help Pleasant Hill schools like right now, this thing, and to make progress on that. So does that help?
So as an education commission, we cannot do that. We have to go to a task force. They
No.
and then they go to the district.
I think we can do that. We can do that. I think it's just that this structure was a way to, again, like have that direct contact with all of the schools and say, okay, we've all as commissioners have talked to all of these schools, and we have now brought this concern to the city council. And so now the city council and the commission are coming to this task force meeting with the district, and we're all going to get on the same page on this issue,
Okay.
right? Yeah.
We all
So
work together.
right.
It's not like a middleman.
no,
Got it.
I didn't, I
Okay.
don't see it that way, but it was the function was really like bringing the issue to get everybody on the same page and looping in city council and a real direct meeting with the district. I think it's in my participation in the past, it was also a very productive meeting because it's like very key people in just a few positions, which is way different than, for example, trying to go to a board meeting or a district meeting and make a public comment, So, yeah, I mean, I that's how it functioned in the past. As we're this new superintendent and like post-pandemic, what it might look like in the future, I don't know. But that was really how it happened in the past is, when a meeting was coming, all of us would have similar sort of conversation, like what's really key that the city and the district talk about in this meeting. And oftentimes they both brought agenda items. Like sometimes the district would say, this is what we want to talk about as well. So.
Yeah, and I would say just that our commission exists as an advisory commission to the city council. Obviously we have a scope that we've kind of laid out that's a little bit bigger than that, but we're primarily existing as an advisory commission within the city of Pleasant Hill to the Pleasant Hill City Council. And then when this task force meeting was a regularly occurring thing several times a year, there was the decision makers on the city council and the decision makers on the MDUSD board meeting to to talk about some very specific things informed by this advisory commission. So I think they do work in tandem and are collaborative and communicative rather than redundant. And then Jeff, you were.
Well, my understanding also is that this commission serves as the eyes and ears of the council. The council members can't have, a presence at every elementary and middle and high school, whereas this commission does. This commission has information that directly pertains to specific schools. Most of you are dealing with schools where you have kids, so you're more in tune to the issues than probably anybody else. So feeding that information back to these commission meetings and these conversations, which we can then put as agenda items on the task force meetings, it makes sure that those issues are being addressed and bringing them the attention of the city council.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So I think my hope is that it would be very an effective tool to help kind of move forward some of the things that we've been raising for a while. I think I would imagine this specific meeting is going to be maybe a broader agenda rather than kind of a tightly focused and specific agenda on on one particular main concern. But my hope would be that as it continues to meet more regularly, that we can help kind of shape and winnow some more specific topics that we may be able to see some more traction and movement on in future task force meetings. So are there other things that people would hope to see either discussed by this task force next week or in future task force meetings?
Yeah, I think it does feel a little middleman-y right now. And I think that if we would know the schedule, like obviously we're just getting started. So, can we decide on a pattern of those meetings so that we know that, as we meet monthly, we know that, oh, next, 2 months from now is when that task force meets. So we decide and I think we kind of have talked about crossing guards and the infrastructure pieces like that. So all the stuff that you talked about, we said we wanted to have, or that wanted to be discussed at a meeting, but it'd be nice to say, okay, so their meetings are in April and November. So our meetings are going to kind of focus on that so that we feel like an advisory body rather than stuck. Like, why are we meeting if we have no say? So I hope that comes out of it. I know we took a big pause, so now we got to kind of get back up, but I'd love to know what the frequency is and what comes out of it. And maybe we can ask whoever's from, maybe if someone attends that we report back at this meeting, like this is what happened. I know we can read the minutes, but maybe it's for a little bit more of a discussion or less like, did you read the minutes, and more like, here's what we talked about.
And my other concern also is for other cities who maybe don't have, I know a lot of other cities do not even have an education commission. So then they probably do not have a task force. So then is it just going to be Pleasant Hill with an education commission and a task force constantly kind of tapping the board on the shoulder like, hey, we have some more, things we want to talk about, and that could be exacerbating for them. And also not representative of the entire school district.
Yeah, though, if we're gonna either be a squeaky wheel or not squeaky wheel, I'd rather Pleasant Hill be a squeaky wheel for good.
Yeah.
Maybe that can be our unofficial tagline, squeaky wheel for good. And I also think that a lot of what we discuss is viewed through a lens of equity that does extend beyond our city borders. And I think there are some times where we kind of have to refocus our purview on city, on Pleasant Hill as a city specifically, though I think we kind of naturally are moving towards issues and topics that extend beyond the boundaries of the city, which I think is a good thing. So hopefully our squeaky wheel for good is also for the broader good. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I mean, I think that's kind of the point, is that how often do district officials and city officials sit down and actually talk about issues that are impacting the kids in that city? And unfortunately, it's not as often as, maybe it would be beneficial. So, I mean, my recollection is that the meetings were not like, oh, once a quarter on the third Thursday. Like, it wasn't like that. It was, in the past, it was more like when all of our schedules actually align, which, can be kind of sporadic, right? But I think, again, it will be interesting to see how it plays out this time around. But with previous superintendents, it was very productive. It was a really great opportunity to be that squeaky wheel, to really advocate for students in Pleasant Hill and parents in Pleasant Hill and say, hey, like this is an issue. And city officials are bringing it to district officials. And so we're elevating that to like, that is, those people talking about it. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it is the point to be the squeaky wheel. So yeah, it's annoying and it's the point. So both can be true.
Any thoughts for agenda on this or suggested topics for this meeting? Or do you know for future meetings? Yeah. If there's a draft being, okay. Yeah, great.
Redo it and then send it back to the district.
Yep, that makes sense. Do you happen to know, Jeff, if there is any kind of plan for frequency of this task force meeting?
I don't.
Okay.
That's one of the action items I've written down for myself is to
Okay.
determine whether, what the frequency is going to be, and to convey that the commission would request that they be held
Yeah.
regularly so that the commission can.
And I think there's also the possibility of us, if there are issues that continue, that we've had a few issues that keep on showing up on our agendas and we feel stuck or we feel like we're not sure what the next step is, seeing this as a tool in our toolkit in advocacy, that this is a thing that happens. It's a thing that's happening again. I think it's nice that we didn't have to demand that it happens again or ask that it happens again, but that there's other people who are wanting to raise these issues between the board and the city.
Jen and I,
Yeah.
we're gonna fight over this.
No.
microphone.
Terrific.
I wanted to, I had it in my memory as you were saying that when you asked about future agenda items. And I recall that something that this task force was working on before, having an open discussion about, and I think has maybe become more acute during the pandemic, is school enrollment in Pleasant Hill. I know there's been a drop in school enrollment, and there are certain schools that have a much lower enrollment than others. And there are also a couple of new developments, right, that are also going to impact enrollment. And so I think that is also would be a good future and ongoing discussion item for this task force about like where kids are in Pleasant Hill, where kids are in other places in the district, and what that means about school enrollment and school boundaries and that kind of thing. That would also play into that discussion around traffic and those other things that we're talking about. But I remember looking at the numbers when I did last year, my report, and like net, there had been a drop of about 400 students across Pleasant Hill through the pandemic, like just disappeared 400 students. And that's a whole elementary school, right? And so that enrollment this year, I don't know how that yet compares to last year. I'm guessing it's up some, but again, like it's slowly decreasing kind of pre-pandemic and now, and then, yeah, again, those developments, how that all plays in, I think that would be a good agenda item for the city and district to be talking about and planning for. So anyway.
Yeah, I would piggyback on that and just say, on the enrollment issue are the class sizes across the district. I understand that, it is written into the teacher contracts. It is California Ed Code that they can go up to 32, but not every district maxes out the class sizes to that, and ours does. And so we have students from kindergarten to high school seniors that are in class size of 32, and that's on the enrollment. And I think that is a big hot button issue for not just Pleasant Hill, but across the district. It's just not, there's hundreds of studies that show that class sizes that large are detrimental to students' learning. And so if we can put something on their agenda, that would be the one. Just start. Yeah, school, yeah, enroll. I think the enrollment dropping, right, caused them to push the class sizes up. But
Also, I mean,
they
it's really
didn't disappear,
complicated. Yeah, it's
right?
really
They went to
complicated,
private
yeah.
schools.
Yeah.
They went private, so.
I mean, yeah, there's or homeschooler. There's a lot of things that
Yeah,
happen.
they left,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think, and then the people that stayed, the public school, the parents like us who are committed and dedicated to public school education are now fighting that number, so. That's the feedback I get from my schools, and not just Pleasant Hill, but subbing around the district.
One thing I think could be on the future agenda would be the district actually coming, like, letting us know as a city, and also as a commission, like the evaluative processes for looking at data. So like the California reports, we had kind of started with some subcommittees looking at what the reports of the specifically Pleasant Hill schools, like how we're doing according to those state reports. And like, I think it would be nice to know what is the district evaluative process so that we could attend that if there's a community meeting around that evaluative process or a discussion, and that we could then bring that back to our schools and back to this commission to say, this is what the district is seeing, then what does it look like for Pleasant Hill? And then is there a way that we can influence that? That may help us strategic plan past 2025 with previous numbers, just something that they could give to us or get us looped in on.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I mean, just because we have representation at all the school sites around Pleasant Hill. Like I said on our school site council, and we talk a lot about data and metrics and scores, and it impacts all of our Title I funding at Fair Oaks. But pulling together as a commission, like we have data points from a number of school sites in this city, at least, and that would be an interesting talking discussion point. Okay, so we will watch for an agenda for next week's meeting, and we can probably send it out to the commission once it's finalized and public. And again, I believe the meeting is at 9 a.m. on Tuesday of this upcoming week. Does that sound right?
That does sound right.
Okay.
I can verify it. And I mean, it'll be on the agenda when we send it out to you too. But before we move off this topic, the message I'm hearing from a lot of you is feeling like you're not having your voices heard with the council. Would it make sense? I mean, we already are planning to have Sue Nowak attend next month. That's still on the plan. Would it make sense to have have a council member, have Sue as our liaison, come every other month or every quarter to just sort of, get the sense of what the commission is seeing at their schools and what the things that you feel are issues that you want the council to be aware of? Would that help kind of bridge that gap that you're feeling?
Perhaps some sort of, I think, movement towards action, I think would be helpful. Sometimes it does feel a little bit like meeting to meet and not meeting to change, which I think a lot of us joined to do that. If Sue is in a position to, have our voices heard and make some change, and by all means, I know she's very open to conversations, and she's been a great asset to our meetings in the past. So I'd be happy to have that.
I think every time you talk, I talk, and every time you talk, I know I'm right now like the longest serving member. So I feel like I also just want to say that I think it's also really important for this commission to think about how getting changes to happen in education is really like moving a ship. Oh, now we have two. We don't have to fight, but like some of those things that I talked about before that I saw as real successes of this meeting that happened before. The first one about fixing that feeder pattern issue took 7 years. And then the second one about the residency took 4 years. And so I just, I put that out there not to be defeatist, but to be clear about, I think there's successes, and I think that there's clear paths to change, but it often takes a really long time. So I wouldn't want the commission to be feeling like, oh, we've been to like these meetings and nothing changed. It does change, it just changes very slowly. And that's why maybe I said before, it takes that squeaky wheel, and it takes continuing to push, going to the meeting and saying, we need to see change on this, we need to see change on this, we need to see change on this. So I feel like hopeful, like, oh, these meetings are coming up again. We can start to bring some of these things, start to push some of these changes. And I would expect they'll take a few years. Like if my previous history is a guide, I mean, hopefully, some things will change faster, but hopefully that sounds hopeful and not like negative, but I think that, it's important to remember that too.
It also might be nice to definitely hear that. And in order for us to also maybe push that change and push sort of being the squeaky wheel is to make other changes ourselves. So if we do have Sue start coming on a more regular basis, where it's not just ad hoc, where we can actually say, hey, we can have her come whatever period of time, but dedicate maybe some minutes to our meetings to actually talk, like, these are just the top issues. We do go through the school, each one of our schools, certain things to call out, but it might be great for her to hear that just kind of over and over and over again. So it might be an opportunity just to kind of switch things up and see if that helps push the change too.
I agree. And I said it before, but I think it's also important to ask for something very specific, like this is, whether it's like, okay, if the issue is school class size, then we're going to ask for this specific thing. And every time we're at the meeting, we're going to ask for it, same as like, and I think part of what drove some of that change about residency was that issue, right? It was like, and that's tricky because, you want to serve every kid that shows up at school in an equitable way. But there was clearly becoming a pattern where there was inequities because of some of the ways that that residency wasn't being verified, right? And so that specific ask, so I think that's also something we as a commission can think about because we talk about a lot of things, but then like, what is the specific ask at the end of the day? Like, and each time you're in front of the mayor, each time you're in front of the district saying, this is what, we need a school crossing guard at this street, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I just turned it off, turn it on. Is that maybe we have it on a regularly scheduled thing, so we know like, okay, Sue's coming, and so let's come to a consensus of what we're hearing, so that we know what we are asking for or saying, Sue, this is our hot button, that we can continue to be consistent on that message. Not that she couldn't come to every meeting. Obviously, she is absolutely welcome to, or anybody's welcome to come, but sort of that we say, okay, so next month Sue's going to be here. Let's make sure we know what we're talking about. And then she has a chance to ask us questions or perspectives. So maybe it's quarterly, maybe it's at the April meeting and the November meeting every year, or whatever it is, so that we kind of have that like, okay, we've had monthly meetings and now we know exactly what we want to advocate for. Because I can see, this is a great time to come together and discuss what's going on in our schools, but I can see like 12 of us going, and we want this, and we want this, and we'd like this, and and this is what we want for this school. But we may need to come like, hey, we've agreed that this is a priority so that we can be that consistent messaging. And then she can go to the task force. So maybe it's like, okay, if the task force is coming up, she comes to the meeting before that, and we kind of, backtrack ourselves up. So we've got a plan.
And it might be beneficial to try to focus more narrowly on systemic issues as opposed to singular school issues. So just a thought. And I will certainly mention to June, the city manager, and Sue that invitation is going out, and we can try to finalize how often. And I would suggest maybe having a specific agenda item for her to come, so that way she can, study ahead of time, have her facts so that she can answer your questions. I'm sure she would be happy to come to every one of these meetings and just, kind of take things on the fly, but it's much better for you if you're getting information that she's had time to vet and she's not just having to talk on the fly.
Yeah, and I think that'd be great. I mean, Sue has come to so many education commission meetings, and they've always helped, I think, us clarify what is actionable in what we're discussing. And I think that's the frustration is, I think, less that no one's listening to us as much as it is like we don't know what our action steps are, and we don't always know what our possibilities of advocacy are. And one of our later agenda items will be looking at our strategic plan. And there are some things in there that we have not been exercising in terms of steps of advocacy between us and the city council and beyond, that I think we can recognize like, oh, this is actually part of what we've set out to do, and we can do it more effectively, or we could just do it, period, because we haven't been doing it. And I think being back in the same room will shift things a little bit. I think there was a while mid-pandemic where a few of us were like, I don't really know what our education commission is doing, or if it's necessary right now. It doesn't feel like, are we meeting just because we're supposed to be meeting? And then I think hopefully, I've been feeling like there's more movement and more excitement and more energy towards specific action that we've been taking and moving towards. And I hope that continues. So I think it would be helpful. And I think it would help us learn what our actionable steps are coming out of meetings beyond, because I think we've been talking about the crossing guards for a long time. And I think at one of our last meetings, we said like, it has to move beyond our agenda, and we have to be voices that help it show up elsewhere. And so I think Sue could be very helpful in helping us know what next steps are, as well as us kind of getting clarity around next steps. So I think that'd be great. Okay, great. Let's close our discussion on the school district task force meeting. and move on to item 6 on our agenda, which is a discussion around hosting a community conversation on an education topic. The community conversations were an initiative of the diversity subcommittee of the Civic Action Committee a couple of years ago. I think that was the origin and kind of genesis of these community conversations. And they were held primarily on issues that were in the purview of the diversity subcommittee of the Civic Action Committee. There were community conversations on racism and on mental health and a number of other topics, and they were hosted via Zoom. And I don't know if there have been any in-person community conversations or if they've always been on Zoom.
They've always been on Zoom. We haven't had one in a little over 6 months.
Okay.
And I've been talking to them every month at their meetings to try to get another one going, which is why I suggested to Dave to talk to Lloyd Sheen, who is the vice chair of the CAC, but also the chair of the diversity subcommittee, to work on getting this, because I think education has a lot of good issues that they can bring to the community conversations and broaden out some of the topics that are being discussed.
So I reached out to Lloyd, and he was very, very open and excited about the possibility of a collaboration between Civic Action and Education Commission, hosting one of these community conversations on an education-related topic. And I don't want to just repeat the district-wide town hall on racial bullying, but that was certainly like listening to that meeting and recognizing how many stories there were to be told on that topic, and how much kind of maybe bottled up frustration or a lack of space. And that meeting provided some space. And I think there was a sense that it needs to be there needs to be continued space held for those stories to be told, for those frustrations to be aired. And that's certainly part of the work we've done over the last few years with our anti-racism subcommittee that we convened for a year and a half or so and did a lot of work around. So that comes to mind as a possible topic of conversation. And it could be either framed kind of in not framed negatively, but like school bullying, or it could be what do we want our school cultures to be? What does it look like to have a welcoming, diverse, equitable school? And currently there are some places where we're not meeting those hopes for our school. So I think this would probably be, if we wanted to move forward with this, we'd probably want to have like an ad hoc subcommittee. Is it ad hoc? Or some sense, if there's a sense of wanting to collaborate with Civic Action Commission on a community conversation that we'd host for the wider public in Pleasant Hill. There's excitement on Civic Action part, and we could collaborate with them on that. But I'm curious what everybody thinks.
First thing that comes to mind, and this may be controversial, and you can all poo-poo it, is banned books. I don't know why that just was like, oh, do we talk about that kind of thing? I was like, ooh, it seems racy, seems like also like a little bit like it could get the conversation going.
It certainly could. And we have an incredible resource with the Pleasant Hill Library,
Right.
who would also probably love to be part of that conversation. And every time I talk to someone at the library about kind of like something that like people feels like controversial, they're so thoughtful. Our county librarians are so thoughtful about how to navigate all of these things. It'd be really, but it is one of those things where people are like, "Ooh, how do we talk about that?" So
know that we're a book banning kind of district, because Patrick and I worked over in 2020 on a list of books, like inclusive books for all of the elementary schools. And since he was in here and not running a whole library, he had all this money to then buy these books for all of the elementary schools. So that was something that we went and researched books together to find books about that would make everyone kind of feel included, so that all of these elementary school kids would see themselves. And I know I've seen a lot of banned book posters where teachers are trying to get kids excited to like read these. They're like, these are banned. So you want to read a book on your own? You're not supposed to read these. So
Well,
Yeah.
To me, it's like,
I like
but
it,
but
yeah.
the engagement, like,
Yeah,
what
of
is
course.
it about banned books? Like, not necessarily that it's happening here, but sort of like that, like,
Yeah.
you know,
Dave, is your question though, topics, or is it, do we want to do this collaboration?
Probably both.
So I think a collaboration would be good. You know, I think to get a couple of committees working together, commissions working together would be good. Another topic, and I don't know if this is happening at the elementary schools. So for those of you who rep elementary schools, it'd be good to know. But I know at the middle and high school level, they're talking a lot about this increase in fighting. That post-pandemic, they're seeing a rise in fight and a drop in flight, right? So that tendency to physical fighting, so that tendency to kind of step back, assess the situation, and talk through a problem versus throw fists, that's really flipping since the pandemic. And that might be an interesting one. I don't have any idea where you go to get resources about that, but I know that that is something they're talking about, and they're seeing a lots of suspensions and even some expulsions related to that. Yeah, and the other one that I've heard recently a few times come up has to do with homework, and not necessarily the amount of homework that is or isn't being assigned, but who is and isn't doing their homework and why. And it comes a lot of times down to as the child gets older, the parents get more out of their depth to help with homework, and then they feel uncomfortable. So they poo-poo the homework and they don't support it in the home because they don't know how to help the child when the child starts to struggle. So there have been some early conversations about there are resources. You don't have to redo 5th grade math, Jen. You don't have to do that. You did it, you passed, you're good. Here's what you can do when your child is struggling in Algebra 1 in the high school, or with, world history. Here are resources. And so there are some conversations starting around that kind of very organically that might be helpful. So those are some potential topics, And I don't know, those may be too upper, middle and high school, but there may be some themes for elementary school too.
The thing that came to mind when we're talking about banned books, and then Lema, when you added on too, I feel like those two things, the inclusivity, the importance of inclusion in books and banned books, that topic goes together, right? Like books are being banned because of the content in them, but a lot of it has to do with who the stories are about a lot of times and the context of them. So you could have the talk be banned books, why they're being banned, but why books about inclusion and representation are important. And then you can also provide resources to parents about like why inclusion matters in books, and having your kid read books about different types of people is also really important. And here's like a great resource list from probably the library about great books for them to have. So it kind of could go together. So banned books might feel like racy maybe to some people, but then there's like a happier kind of take home at the end, right?
Yeah.
Something like that.
I don't worry so much about our banned books. Is it going to be a racy conversation? I just don't know, to Lema's point, how relevant it is. I do like, though, saying we live in a fairly inclusive community when you think about the fact that we don't have banned books and we're not doing those things. In fact, let us talk about what we have done as a community, and let's have a conversation about how we can put these books in more kids' hands. That I like. It's not that I dislike the banned book idea, but I just think I wouldn't probably come to a banned book meeting because I know that we don't do that here. And so, but if we kind of framed it a little bit differently, it might be good.
But that could also segue into the media literacy thing, which is just perhaps, like you're saying, talking about these books being banned, and people are like, well, I don't know, that's not me. But are you just being told that it's not you, or is it indeed like happening, maybe not directly in Pleasant Hill, but around? And then with what you were talking about with middle schools and high schools, I know that correlation does not equal causation, but I have seen that in subbing and talking to teachers too around the district, that the behavior issues have doubled or tripled at those levels, 5th grade on middle school and high school. And during the pandemic, the district had to cut out all middle school sports. And I know growing up, and I've just begun to do some research on it, but there's always been this notion, right, that keep kids in sports keeps them out of trouble, right? You're burning off energy, you have a place to go, you have an after school place, all of these things. And now when those things are cut out, and then we also no longer have funds for counselors in schools, full-time counselors, all of those things are cut out. And then a pandemic, everything's been exacerbated. So now parents of middle school children who have a lot of energy or pent up aggression, where does it go? Oh, can you pay $1,000 for a rugby program after school? No? Oh, okay. Well, they're going to the library or 7-Eleven. And there's no other outlets, and the district and the school is not providing those any longer. Again, I'm not saying this correlation is the cause, but I think it's something to look into. I don't know how we bring back middle school sports, because when you don't have money, you got to cut somewhere. But that's something maybe we could look at, in the budget with the task force, or
I think just a forum or a community conversation on that, like this is what's happening. And, even saying like, okay, sports are an outlet, like maybe we took them out because of the pandemic, but maybe that's an opportunity, and we don't have them at the middle schoolers, but we do have Parks and Rec. So again, bringing our community together. Parks and Rec does offer this, or, there are various options that do exist, and maybe that, I don't know, maybe there's research to support like the fight versus flight. They don't have another way to get out that energy. Anyway, just kind of engaging the community. And I think that's a good idea. And I think it is relevant, that homework piece, even if you do know how to do second grade math, it's not about second grade. It's not about the math. It's about how do you help your kid, like kind of a parental parenting class, almost like parenting around homework, which is very different because you were zooming in there. And so you were a content expert because you were there with your kid, but now you don't even know what the teacher said. But the reality is you don't need to know what the teacher said. You need to know to ask these questions, or like, this is how we can help you because you are going to eventually grow out of it. So I think it is relevant to say, like, it's not just middle and high. I think there is, what do you do when your kindergarten has a tantrum? Like, this is what's reasonable. This is how and maybe you could even have breakout sections to say, like, this is for kids, younger kids, because these are appropriate techniques in middle and high. Like, I could just see, I think it is relevant to elementary.
I was just thinking, as a parent of a high schooler, there are battles I'm willing to pick, and there's battles I'm not willing to pick. And some nights English homework is not the battle I'm going to die on. Like, that's honestly the truth. Like, that's like, and I see it as like, you have a consequence at school, because if you didn't turn in the homework, you get the D. And so I think that's also the shift. It's a shift in parenting and thinking about how do you help a young person become an adult, and like, how do you force a kid to do something else? But I think, the common thread I'm hearing and is that there was a forum before about mental health, right? That's what and maybe the overlay here is a forum about youth mental health. And like, that sort of being the way the two commissions come together and building on that work that was already there before, maybe some of the same partners that participated in the mental health forum, but it being more specifically focused on youth mental health. And it would probably touch on a lot of these topics that we've talked about. And there was, early in the pandemic, again, as a commission, we did some work in pulling resources together too, about places where people could get low-cost mental health services or free mental health services for their children. I'm sure many of those still exist. College Park High School counselors did a lot of work in pulling together resources. So maybe that's moving forward, and that being an initial idea, that sounds like that kind of hits where a lot of people are at.
Yeah, I think there was one specifically on student mental health, if I'm not mistaken, because I think we were kind of asked for.
We tried to find a student.
We tried to find, yeah. But I do think that there is a broad umbrella category of mental health and wellness.
And also, like, mental health is probably a topic that's worth revisiting.
I think so.
Multiple times.
Yeah, after a couple of years.
Yeah. So I mean, and just with that, coming back to what the other Jennifer was saying about like, there have been changes, not only in like resources available, but also in student behavior as a response. Like as we were walking in, I'll show this to everybody else. I was just saying that this is our first meeting together in a while, but I recently just had my first work meeting back in person with a bunch of people. And the number of people that showed up in pajama pants and slippers, I was just like, and you are adults, right? So and the number of kids that show up in pajama pants because I drop off kids, I know. So I mean, I know there has been just like a change in like how we relate to each other that a lot of people are still going through and figuring out like, how do we do this again? And how do we interact face to face with people? And what does that mean about how we build relationships and our mental health, right? So yeah, and how that impacts kids, I think is an important topic.
Yeah. Can I? Oh, yeah.
No, I was just going to, number one, echo what Dave was saying, that yes, we have done one on youth and mental health. It is certainly a topic we can revisit. But what I was thinking was, Jen, with your suggestion about the increased fighting, I would probably try to make that part of a larger overarching discussion of just behavioral changes. Because I remember when I first started in this job, my first education commission meeting, Jennifer gave a report about kids tearing up bathrooms at College Park High School. It was part of a TikTok thing.
That was a TikTok trend for a while.
And so kind of taking the look at, behavioral issues and, causes and effects and ways that it can be addressed might be kind of the umbrella that you can have that kind of conversation under. And I think a lot of what you're talking about tonight can be grouped into, kind of umbrella conversations of, why is this happening this way? And the homework one probably is sort of a standalone. I don't really think that you can lump that as a behavioral or mental health thing, although maybe you can.
Have you not had a high schooler doing homework?
I've had 4. So
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, I think the homework piece though is more about the parents than it is
Yeah,
about the
it's a parent.
kids. Right? Because and we don't, I mean, that was just one of the themes that I've heard come up recently. So I'm not married to that idea, but I think it's that I don't know how to help my kids. So it's the question is really, what resources can we give for you to get a behavior change in your child, right? If your kid won't do the homework because they're stuck and you don't know how to help them, how can we, help you change your behavior? How can we help you find resources to help your child get on that path and get that homework in and done and in? So it could still kind of be a behavior change thing. But I like the theme, and then it gives us lots of offshoots, right? So we can kind of have an overarching theme, and then there are, maybe multiple meetings over a long period of time we can host. Not
Yeah.
For years.
I
There you
think,
go.
I think that also on this topic, I know you were asking, you said you didn't know at the elementary school if there was more like physical outbursts or fights. And I don't know the answer to that specifically, but I do know that some teachers have seen just like overall, I don't want to say developmental delay because that's not what this is, but like in student development theory perspective, like children would come back to school after the pandemic and were doing like parallel play when they were like a lot older. So instead of like interacting together, they had to spend like so much time playing far away from friends that was kind of continued even like post-pandemic. And so I think that could be an interesting part of the conversation for the younger kids. And just overall, like how has the pandemic possibly impacted behavior or like social or like mental or social development of children and teens? And then seeing some of these are some things you might notice of your kid at this age. And, we can kind of help them think, oh, hey, it's maybe not just my kid. And maybe these are some of the reasons and how I can help them like progress in that development. I don't know.
I really like that idea. I like all of these ideas. I'm an idea liker. Like all these ideas are like wonderful.
So I think we're on board to do.
I think we're on
something.
board. So like what I think the next steps are, I will continue emailing back and forth with Lloyd about some of these specific topics we talked about and see kind of what they're thinking in terms of timing, in terms of what hosting one of these looks like. I don't want to overextend ourselves, but I do think, especially if we're in collaboration with another commission in the city, I think we could find the time resources within our commission and another commission to host a community conversation that would be really pertinent to where people are at, whether it's parents or students. So I think that's the next step, and then we'll report back kind of on, or I'll report back on what I hear from Lloyd. So let's move on from there for now. Agenda item 7 is a discussion with lots of discussions on media literacy event planning. Last time Aaron was here, but Jennifer, you were not here, and Troy, you were not here. So Aaron updated us, and then I think the next step that we talked about was to have a meeting where Patrick was going to be here as well. And Patrick, I was not able to invite him, and Aaron was not able to invite him to this meeting. But I think that is the next step. So we don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but if Jennifer or Troy, if there are any specific updates since our last meeting that are worth briefly updating us on.
I will be very brief. I can be. I don't know if it came up in the meeting. I tried to watch it, but there was one other specific ask from Patrick about sort of preparing for an event. And preparing might not even be the right word, but it ties in with what we were just talking about, is that the library has so many resources that can help in so many ways. And part of what we were talking about is if we have a media literacy event for youth, it's still going to be really important for parents to understand the resources that are available at the library. And so examples of some of the things that had come up was, well, just to what you were just talking about, like you can use BrainFuse and you can get, algebra tutoring and, till 10 p.m. Like there's all, or another example that had come up in my own home, my kid, I mentioned English homework because he's not loving that, but he's very good at, he's very auditory. And so once I showed him that you could check out audiobooks at the library and you could listen to that while you were doing weightlifting instead of sitting with Fahrenheit 451, that like opened his eyes to like, oh my gosh. So, so Patrick had asked that he was going to give me a list of like, this is a resource that parents can use at the library in this way. This is a resource parents can use at the library in this way. And that would support sort of helping the whole community be a little more media literate and also connected with the library. And he had asked that the commission, like each month, distribute that to our like newsletter or like, whoever those. So in building to that, and so I would expect to have that from him in the next few days and be distributing that. So it'd be like, okay, in April, we're all going to be talking about this. And then in May, we're going to be talking about this. So I don't know that came up in the last meeting. Just wanted to make sure that was.
I don't think it did.
Okay.
So that's super helpful because I always forget how many resources are available at the library. So I think that's. Yeah.
And the thinking was really that, he wants to make sure parents understand everything that's there that they can access. And that could then support that, because if a kid is doing a report or something and it's like, I don't even know where to start with this report, or I don't know how to, is Wikipedia the place to start? Is it not the place to start? Like the library has all these resources that can help with that. So he was going to provide that in the next week or two. And so we could start doing that. So, and then the other thing that he did talk about that was a little bit adjacent, related to parents. And so this is just something to think about, but he talked about how the library is a really great place for young parents to come together with kids for story time, right? Like it's really great that everybody, and that he feels like that there's something really special that happens, not just with the kids, like learning to read, but that the parents having that ability to connect a little bit over like, oh, my kids had a sleep regression, and that as kids age, that those spaces are lost and those connections are lost a little bit in sort of a public way like that. And so he also suggested that putting these hands or the resources in the hands of parents would be really great, but then also the commission and the library may be thinking about moving forward, we'll host this event and then think about how to sort of promote that kind of connection between parents, that would be a good next step as well. So I didn't see either of those things.
I love Patrick.
Can we get him on the commission?
Anyway.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That's what came up that I didn't see. So I'll get that list to everybody as soon as I have it. And we can start sending those resources out.
That sounds great.
Well, the thing I love about that is as we kind of hone in on ideas for the community meeting, we should just remember to pull him in and say, okay, this is what we're going to talk about. What resources does the library have to provide? And then when we do a follow-up, like we're always looking for articles for the Outlook. I feel like we could write lots of articles off of the stuff he's going to give us. And then, kind of having that, to your point, having that calendar of things we're going to do, things we're going to talk about, and then ways we're going to follow up, and, really leveraging the Outlook. Because I'll tell you, people really read that. I mean, I've had several people reach out about the picture and, we got school supplies. Somebody did a drive for school supplies based on the article that we wrote in, I think, December. So we should I love that. We can use that.
We always joke about just taking over the Outlook. So
And then Justin, 250 words.
We have to have limits.
No.
And I already get a lot of pushback from our designer over it being too text heavy, just because we have so much content submitted. And one of the other commissions is angry with me right now because they tried to give me 2 articles last time and I had to cut one of them. So
well, we're going to get to
great ideas. Is there an action you want on the minutes as far as where to go from this?
I think the next step is to, at our next meeting, have Patrick here, where we will revisit the whole plan for the media literacy event and map out what is needed from the Education Commission and other resources in order to pull off the event, because it kind of grew, it shifted in scope from like a one-off event to something that's more hands-on experiential. So I think we need to invite Patrick to the next meeting, and assuming he can make it, spend some time revisiting the plan and then mapping out what the next steps are. So
if I can make one suggestion before you close out of this, and it kind of circles back to our last discussion point. The event that you're talking about doing is for kids. It certainly would be within the realm of good topics to do a parent-focused media literacy community conversation. So that's, so you're kind of hitting both ends of the spectrum on that.
I added it to the list. Terrific. Well, let's move on to agenda item 8. I'm also making a mental note that this is a lot of discussion items for one agenda because we have some stuff to say about topics related to education. So rather than spend the bulk of our time tonight on the strategic plan, which I thought we might do, but we've spent a lot of time discussing other things, we'll keep this one more high level. But we have, I think it was it 2019 to 2025 or 2019 to 2024. So we're approaching the end of our previous strategic plan, though it got significantly upended by COVID. And again, we pivoted a number of times, and early COVID, we did some work around mental health. And then we did some work around anti-racism. And that was not specifically in our strategic plan. And then we kind of were like, we can't remember, we're not sure what we're supposed to do. So I want to, as we're now into 2023, revisit the strategic plan just to bring it back on our radar, kind of as a reminder of what we've set out as our strategic purview, and also an opportunity. This is a very different commission than the commission that in 2019 or late 2018 put the strategic plan together. So an opportunity to bring it back to our agenda so we can familiarize ourselves with it, but also modify it if we need to modify it or shift and change some things. So rather than spending a lot of time on it, I'll read through some of the high level pieces of it. And then I would love to hear primarily the question that I'll leave you with after I open up for discussion around is what's missing from this? Like what are areas that, or maybe it's either what's missing or where are we not strategically living into our strategic plan? But is there something that's missing? Like, is there a big thing that we have kind of found ourselves as a commission needing or wanting to do that doesn't really fit in our strategic plan? And then we may want to revisit our strategic plan and add something to it. I guess it's really just what's missing.
Does everybody here have a copy of it?
I could
I could go print some out. I did not bring any, I'm sorry.
We could print them out or is on the website. Do we have enough devices that we could? Okay. And I'm planning on reading, like, I won't read the goals, but I'm just going to read the like one sentence thing for each of our.
Okay.
So there'll be a chance to.
We'll keep it high level.
We'll keep it high level enough.
Review it over the next few weeks and then
Yeah.
come with our.
We do have an audience member, so I'm gonna run over to my office and print out
Okay.
a couple. Are you sure? Okay.
Okay. All right. I'll read high level. And then the question on the table is what's missing or where do we need to kind of lean into a little bit more as a commission? So the mission statement was that the Education Commission advocates for quality public education in Pleasant Hill. Our vision statement was that all students attending public school in Pleasant Hill receive a quality education. And our strategic priorities for this 2019 to 2024 strategic plan were to inform, communicate, connect and advocate, and innovate. And each of those four has kind of a high level sentence about what that looks like. So our strategic priority number one is to inform. Now we want to inform stakeholders through workshops and seminars, including student events, parent events, and teacher events. Our second strategic priority is to communicate, to increase public awareness of educational topics in the city of Pleasant Hill. Our third strategic priority is to connect and advocate, to connect with the Pleasant Hill City Council, the Mount Diablo Unified School District, site councils, and school board, and advocate for Pleasant Hill teachers, parents, students, and all stakeholders. And then fourth and finally, to innovate, to champion creative ways for parents, students, and the community to connect with inspirational educational opportunities and programs. So that's high level strategic plan. What's missing? What are we not leaning into?
One of my questions is, anyway, this is a topic for time is, do we want to have a retreat to start to, do we want to look at this in the next couple of weeks? Like what are we missing, answering your question? And then what do we want, like, oh, we should start thinking 2025, right? The next one. So maybe it's wrapping this up and looking forward to, it was just kind of a question because we're halfway through not halfway through 2023, but it feels like halfway through 2023. And so just kind of like, I saw that it was like, this was created in a retreat. And I know it takes a long time to like plan that. And I think we have some rotating terms coming up. So we may want to also include our term changes as like a piece of information as we think for future.
Yeah, so one possibility would be to, rather than spend a lot of time tonight or next meeting talking through this, making a plan for which month we want to, instead of a regular meeting, hold a, and we said retreat and then we joked that we were going to go on a cruise or something like that, but we were in this room with pizza and carbonated beverages for a longer period of time where we had whiteboards up and spent time in breakout groups talking through and developing this. So it may be time to do that again, rather than kind of tweak and pick away at this one. And I don't know if there's any reason why we have to wait until 2024 I think we could just say that this plan has been supplanted by the new strategic plan, which starts effective whenever. So that might be a different and a better route for possibly after new commissioners come on to revisit this entirely.
There's looking at this, and if you look at this and read this through the lens of what everybody has just gone through the last 3 years, it's actually not far off. Like in a lot of ways, and I've only been on the commission for half a year, but when you look at some of the things that we're attempting to achieve and the ways in which we achieve them with the situation we were all dealing with, I don't actually think, it's funny because I was reading the Innovate one and you're like, at the time, probably it was innovate. So find new and creative ways. Well, we did find new and creative ways to just make this all happen. So I think actually this still applies. And this is off the cuff, just we're looking at this now, but I think a lot of it still applies, meaning it probably would make sense to say, hey, we can still work with, this is still our strategic plan, but we need to actually start to think about the next phase, which is going to be here before we know it. So.
Yeah, and all the goals and short-term goals and long-term goals
Yeah.
could probably all be revisited in light of
Yeah.
kind of the current.
The one thing that I'll say that no one's gonna like this, but because it's not fun. But
High level,
the one thing that feels like it's missing is the thank you, the infrastructure issue. There's nothing, I mean, it could fit in one of multiple of these high level categories, but we have some very serious infrastructure issues. I mean, we spent an entire basketball season in a gym that was 50 degrees. It was like playing basketball outside. It was embarrassing as a community to have that be our only high school and that's where we played basketball. It was embarrassing. And it was because the district couldn't get to us to even see why we had no heat. It was embarrassing. So, and I'm not saying that's the problem solved, but there are, everybody around this table could give an example of that. And so I think somewhere in here, I mean, we obviously can't solve infrastructure issues, but we can highlight what, you know, we can use our voice to kind of highlight some things that need to be addressed. So that, for me, I just feel like that's something, I know we talk about infrastructure, we've talked about it kind of at a high level multiple times, but I feel like we need to shine a light on some things there. So just glancing through the details underneath those 4 categories, that's the one that kind of feels, that's that one. And then I would say mental health, you know, and connecting specifically around mental health resources in the community and beyond, because post-pandemic, it is a really, really serious issue. It's a serious issue for the teachers as much as it is for the students. Yeah, no, you couldn't have known that.
And the
So-
parents, and the parents are under
yes,
so
you're
much
right, you're
different
right, the
pressure.
Parents, you're
Job
absolutely
losses,
right, Lydia.
inflation, I mean, it's.
Yeah, you're
That
absolutely right.
trickles down to the kids. They're feeling that
Yeah.
pressure.
Yep, you're right. So those 2, when I just glance through it, those 2 kind of stand out for me.
We might be able to revisit some of these, like, oh, under innovate or under this one, we could kind of tuck that, not tuck it in, but we could start and then with an eye towards the next time or whatever. So like, because I looked at some of these short-term ones, I was like, well, yeah, that was way late, but we could do it now. Or like, oh, we are doing it, or, oh, we did it, but because of the pandemic, we probably should do that again. So it should be a new short-term goal. Because, but I wonder where we could like slide in the start of some of those pieces, which is like what you said, what's missing.
Yeah, and when this was created, I mean, it feels like the world was different, and it was a lot of it's around like we want to highlight the educational opportunities that are already there, and we want to just, it's like shine our lights on the good things that are happening, and I think we still want to do that as a commission, though I think there's also kind of a drive to amplify voices that need to be amplified, shine lights on places that are less convenient to shine lights on places. And we talked about infrastructure last week. You mentioned just like the lack of a performing arts space amongst kind of middle and high school spaces. And like, so it's like, it's both like, we need to fix the HVAC and it needs to get fixed because it's embarrassing. And it's also like, we also need to have a place where the arts can flourish. And the gym is too cold for basketball and too bouncy acoustically for orchestra.
They're too cold for paint to dry.
I wonder about the gyms in other schools also, because we hear about this all the time from the PE teachers where the kids are freezing or they're overheated in these areas, and all of the HVAC systems in our schools, like it's a corner of my classroom was taken away. So obviously it was not built with the classroom when they were built. So, and they're on the roofs of the buildings and things. So were the gyms just skipped? And is that an issue at all of the schools? Because it's you're sheltered from the rain and the sun and that's it.
I know it's an issue in at least 2 other high schools. It might be more, but I know there were 2 others for sure that had serious HVAC issues.
I think we should, in light of this, plan to spend a focused, whether we call it a meeting or a retreat, in May or June or September, probably. That feels like it depends on when new commissioners would be seated. But it feels like it's worth spending the entirety of a meeting or a little bit longer on it. So I don't know how we pre-plan agenda items, but it feels like this should go on. The action item coming out of this is that we want in the next probably September would be the latest we'd want to do this. Because I know we usually skip July, but we have August or September. So it'd be May, June, August or September.
So I just want to go on the record and say, can we not do it in May? Because that's, our meeting's the same night as graduation, high school graduation.
okay.
I've got a graduate, so
Yeah, not May.
thank you.
I would suggest that since you normally skip the June and July or
We
just
normally
July,
skip just July.
maybe do your workshop in July instead of skipping that meeting and try to work around vacation schedules.
I was gonna say, I think it would be important to have it done before September, just because usually once the school year starts,
Yeah.
like things just kind of like, and so to know some priority items and some like direction before that, I think would be important. And the other thing I was just thinking is everybody was talking about what's missing, because I was here when this one was made, different world entirely, but I think we spent also a lot of time really trying to think about what we've already talked about today is like, what can the commission actually move the goalpost on with here, right? Like we can't fix the HVAC, right? So like, we're not putting that on our strategic plan, but can we show up at, like, is there a district, you know what I mean? Like there were certain things. So that was kind of the eye that we were looking to it as, and we wrote them all on Post-it notes and categorized them and did all of that. So yeah, I think that was a valuable exercise. And when I look at these goals and objectives, similar to what's already been said, but I see some, they're like, oh yeah, we did it. Some, no, we didn't do it. But thinking about those short-term goals in that way, I think would be helpful. Yeah.
So yes to doing it before September. And we'll figure out in the next few agendas when we'll do it. I don't think we need to decide that tonight.
Could we put it on the May agenda or April agenda, or maybe the May agenda to
decide?
bring our calendars in July,
Mhm.
or do we maybe want to make that meeting ahead so that people can start planning around that?
Why can't we make it the June meeting? Because that school's out by June 22nd. And so we don't have commission reports, we don't have.
June could actually be great because then also I imagine someone will have to take on the work of like writing it up. So I'm not volunteering, but just a little note there. And it's good to have it ready for when we come back in August. I can type fast though, so I can.
Yeah, we can tentatively plan on it being on our in June, unless you have any other.
No, and the way that you can plan it a little more effectively for all of your schedules, instead of having to rely on this fourth Thursday, is if we set it up as a special meeting, a workshop. And in that case, as long as we are, posting an agenda, posting the meeting 72 hours ahead of time, you can have it any day that you want. We could even, and I'm sure you're all going to groan. We could do it like on a Saturday morning and knock it out from, 9 to 1 or something along those lines.
Last time we did it as a special meeting, we started at like 4:30 or 5 and had dinner and then like kind of plowed through that night of whatever that meeting was.
Whatever you want to do. I'm just pointing out that we have options other than the fourth Thursday.
We will tentatively plan on it being our June meeting, and we will plan the details of it, and then we'll confirm the date and timing of it at our April or May meeting.
Second.
Terrific. I love it. All right, we're approaching the end of our,
I think Leah is right that you do have to take a vote on that. Because you're choosing, you're setting an agenda item. So you're taking an action as a commission. So you just need to.
I
Terrific.
motion
Call a vote.
to approve the movement of the agenda item. Second.
all in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Was there a second on that motion?
There was.
I second.
Thank you for keeping us in line. Item 9 is upcoming Pleasantville Outlook and community events. Let's keep this one brief. We have, we do have Patrick. Lindsay's co-written an article or written it in conjunction with diversity. There was some connection with the Diversity Commission for Pride Month that will make its way to Jeff for submission. So we have some Outlook stuff that's happened.
And I guess I just need to circle back with Jeff, because I haven't heard, I've sent it to the Diversity Commission, but I just haven't, like, the first time I heard from the Diversity Commission was when they came to our meeting last time, and no one's ever come back, and so I just don't want it to get lost and not make the deadline. So if you got it, right? You got the link. Okay, so I just don't know, I don't want to like co-write it, but I did it, but they've never, so I just don't want to lose them, but I don't have an email, like I'm
Gotcha.
sending it. I saw that it got sent on. So
Okay.
all that to say, details need to be worked out there, but yes, that's done.
Yes.
And it's harder than you think.
Danielle Navarro, who is the staff liaison to the Diversity Commission, did forward it on. If we don't hear anything back from them, then it's just becomes the Education Commission's article for that month. It's not, it would be nice if we had that working together, but they'll just have to do their own article then. So.
Any other community events happening in the city? I know food trucks are coming back April 5th, and but I think that's the
Off the Grid starts on April 5th. The summer concert series starts back up again on May 28th with the Crossman Connection. Those will go every other Sunday through September 3rd. We have started trying to do some preliminary planning to try to do a Juneteenth event, but I don't have any details on it at this point, as it is still very, very early days. That was something that the Diversity Commission was working on. So Danielle Navarro and I are kind of liaising on it. And if there is an education component to it, I will bring it to either the April meeting or the May meeting, hopefully the April meeting, because May will be pretty late in the day. So.
Yeah, terrific. So just as we think of ways to interface with the city, Off the Grid and summer concert series are opportunities for us to be a presence in the city if there are things that we want to be a presence for.
The big celebration again.
I haven't heard too much from the 4th of July Commission. They normally have an article for this issue of the Outlook having to do with that very thing. I am assuming that they are all, moving ahead with it. Chris Tipton is my contact. I haven't heard anything from him in a couple of months, but I can certainly check on it. I have no reason to believe they're not.
I don't know if there's anything in conjunction with like the race or the parade or something, but might be something to think about. You want to walk in the parade?
I always think it'd be fun to have an education commission, like with all of our like school mascots. Like if we get all of the Pleasant Hill school mascots and t-shirts walking in the parade, that'd be so fun. And I'll just say, like, that comes to mind as like a very fun thing, because when we hosted the photo booth and had school mascot props, kids were coming up and they're just so excited to see, they're like, to find their school there. And Fair Oaks has a big old bulldog that one of my children is terribly afraid of and it doesn't understand why the bulldog is so big and wearing a hat. But it'd be very fun, I think, for the Fair Oaks bulldog to be in the parade, as well as all the other Pleasant Hill mascots. Like, that could be really fun, or parents in their like school t-shirts or some spirit wear. That could be, I think that could be really fun as just a way of like saying, like, Pleasant Hill, we really care about education, and the bulldog is not so scary. So, so I think it's worth maybe an action item that we should connect with. I don't know if that's a 4th of July commission, but.
Well, I think as a commission, you'll need to make, you'll have to approve
Plan.
Walking
Yeah.
in the parade. And then after that, then you as your staff liaison, I would reach out to the 4th of July commission and see what we need to do as far as applying to be in the parade. And then we would make a plan as a commission as to how that's going to look. Are you all going to have, like you say, t-shirts? Are you going to carry mock-ups of the mascots? Do we need to have some kind of a banner? Like, the scouts always have that banner that goes all the way across the street. But yeah.
It'd be fun if we had a giant facial tissue box on wheels that we could have people throw school supplies into, and we throw them candy. So that we could also jump out of it. It's a float. Yeah. Okay. Big dreams. It is the Rose Parade.
You're making a joke, but and no, I'm not saying we should do that, but it did spur a thought for me that the summer concerts, they partner with nonprofits. So I can put you in contact with the chair of the CAC and see if maybe at one of the concerts, if the commission can do a school resource drive. Last year, we did a diaper
That'd be
drive
great.
at one concert. We did a food drive at one concert. So we could certainly try to do a school resource drive, and then you'd have a little pop-up that you could set up and.
We could also
That'd be great.
encourage,
August, right before school starts, so we can like show
And
up with
that's-
our big box of goodies.
yeah, everyone can wear their swag to that event, like their school swag. Come wearing your school swag. It's like the school concert series day and
That'd be really fun.
like bring all the kids and do a school drive. Yeah.
And the music is all schoolhouse rock.
Yeah,
songs.
exactly.
Innovating for our strategic.
I love it. Let's move on to item 10, a discussion around 2023 goals and objectives, which we spent a lot of time already on tonight. So it's essentially like, what are things that we need to talk about at future meetings? And I think we've covered most of them. And I think we'll have some stuff coming out of the task force meeting next week where we want to revisit things. But if there's anything that people are like, we haven't talked about this and we should, this would be a great space to say that. But otherwise, I'm going to take the brief silence as an invitation to move on to agenda item 11, which is commissioner reports on assigned schools. So each of us has a school that we liaison with. And if there are updates or things that are pertinent to the wider commission, this is a great time. Not everybody has to update on their school, but this would be a time to do it. And I'll just say quickly about Fair Oaks Elementary that I think I mentioned at last meeting that there is another new initiative to try to get a PTA PFC started. And that has been kind of a rocky road at Fair Oaks. But I think this one may stick, which is really exciting.
Are you the president?
No, I'm not the president, but we probably need one and we don't have one. And that's probably going to what will help make it stick. But that would be like an invitation if people have been around for the starting of a PTA or PFC at your school. Our school is trying to figure that out. We've started a few times and stopped. We have a lot of parent turnover from year to year. So it has not been easy to continue to have continuity. But it's very exciting and it's also a challenge. And then I will say we had a school award ceremony last week. And they had a few different ones based on grade levels. And one thing that was just really, really exciting and also like emotionally touching for me was they honored probably about a dozen kids in the 4th and 5th grade who are reclassified as English language proficient. And it's so hard to do. My wife is a high school teacher at YV, and she's like, it's so hard at every single level for students to reclassify as English language proficient. And then, so they had this as part of the award ceremony, and they were just like, every kid there was just like cheering. And it was just really, really incredible to see. And that's like, those are the metrics of like, all these other problems are so frustrating, but like kids are being reclassified as English language proficient. And that's huge. And it's like, it can be like a change in like a life story. And it's just really exciting. So I was really, really excited. I was really stoked. Yay, Fair Oaks Elementary. So other reports on assigned schools.
We at Strandwood have found out that our principal is no longer going to be renewed. So she's finishing out her term this year, and then she won't be back next year. So obviously we were all upset. It says she's been there for about 8 years, I believe, 7 maybe, and tried to go to the board and voice our dissension on that decision, but essentially it feels like it's done. And then so there's been rumors that there's going to be a lot of changes at admin. So we'll see if you guys hear anything. Apparently the superintendent has the power to do that, to, change the administration and, bring in people and let people go. So can be devastating to the community and the students, but I don't know. We just gotta go with it. It feels like we don't have much of a say. So that's the latest from ours. We kind of got the news on a Tuesday and raced over to the board meeting on that night. And it was already into closed session and voted on. So yeah, so that'll be a big change for us, and probably it sounds like a lot of other students in our schools in the feeder pattern.
Well, this isn't my assigned school, but I reached out a couple months, I guess last month, from our Outlook article about school supply, needs or school donation needs. One of the clubs at College Park is called Give Back CP, and they do lots of volunteering around the community. And so they hosted a school supply drive based on what we all loaded our schools said they needed. And so it's been sitting in my garage for the last month, but I finally decided to inventory everything, and I've divided it up across, if a school said they needed something, they got something. So I've got 5 bags in my, bags or boxes in my trunk tonight. So I've got stuff for College Park. I have stuff, Dave, for Fair Oaks. I have Jennifer stuff for Hidden Valley. I have stuff for Sequoia Elementary, and I know Aaron's not here, so I have to go over to Sequoia Middle, so I'll just drop both those off. And then Lydia, I have a big box of construction paper and copy paper for you. So yeah, so it was very exciting, and I put a tag on it so that in case you just have to leave it, it says that it's for what school it's for and where it came from, because I think that those kids should get a little bit of credit. So there's a little tag, except your box, it's in the box. So I couldn't figure, I was not that creative today. So anyway, I'm parked right out here. So before you go home tonight, if I said your name, just come to my trunk. I'll be handing stuff out. It's like Christmas. You're welcome.
Before you move on, when those of you that have those bags are dropping them off, if you have a chance to get a photo and send it to me, that would make a great social media post and give a shout out to the Give Back CPHS group.
College Park has a few updates. So they had a dance show this week, which I think is really great. So there's all these dance classes, so they get to perform. And I think it's like 80 kids that, yeah. And then we have tomorrow math field day. So I'm hoping we have some good weather for those kids. And today I know kids went to like a field trip to learn about different medical careers, so and pathways. And I saw a lot of empty seats in my classes. So I know a lot of the kids went. Junior prom is March 25th. The WASC visit starts March 26th, Sunday. That is a Sunday through Wednesday. I'm the WASC coordinator. Yeah. And then we have spring break, which will be very nice. But it's also interesting having something like that happen before spring break, because I think we all know if you've been on a campus before breaks, kids are just a little excited. Yeah. So then we have senior ball, May 6th at the Asian Art Museum, which is fun. And then May 25th is our class graduation, and June 2nd, school's done.
At College Park this week and last week too was also the area band festival and then the area orchestra festival. And that's Pleasant Hill specific, but they bring all the kids in the feeder pattern to the school for the band and then also for the orchestra, and they all perform. And they perform by grade, and then at the end, all the kids play the national anthem together, or what? No, America the Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, they had that. And so I've been there for that. And I would say, I'll put my plug in again, infrastructure, but it's really clear that we need a performing arts space. Like, it's not ideal to have everybody sitting on the gym floor for a music performance. But the other thing I would say that was very apparent this year is the lack of fourth graders, because fourth grade music was cut. And so there was far fewer students. And I think it was just really, it's really apparent and clear there. So it was mentioned several times by other students and parents. So, in setting some of those agenda items and in the future, advocacy for arts education. And I know there were some ballot measures that passed about arts funding and making sure that, kind of keeping an eye on that and that the arts funding, how that plays out would be important. So that's all I'll say about it.
I'll just say real quick that I went to the parallel event at Ignacio Valley because we are in the Ignacio Valley theater pattern with Fair Oaks. And my fourth grader got to cheer on some of his fifth grade friends and wishes that he also had an instrument to play that day. But it was wonderful and fun, and also a lot of acoustic bouncing on the gym wall.
It's very loud. It is very loud. And, but it is also, it's just so, if you've never had a kid, it's still just fun to go because it's so amazing to see like what the fourth graders sound like. Because it's like, and then just like in a couple years, how just fluent they are with their instruments and how well they're playing. And it's like, wow, like just seeing that progression it's really fun to see. And the little kids are so excited to be there with the high schoolers, they're just like, yeah. So yeah, it's fun.
One other thing that you made me think of, Lema, the pathway, I don't know if everybody knows what that is, but the College Park High School has a biomedical pathway, and it's a whole national program. And that pathway it makes our students stand out. If you have a student who goes onto that pathway, it really, they stand out. So for example, my son is on the pathway, both of them, but my senior got accepted to Purdue, and at Purdue, he actually gets college credits for being in the pathway. So when we talk about, I saw in the strategic plan, career fair and those sorts of things, really promoting that biomedical pathway. I don't know that all the middle schools promote it equally or help the students understand what they have to do to get on that pathway. And it is limited. It's not, they don't have space for every comer. But I think that might be something that we could just highlight within the middle schools, because that program is it's very special, and our students who go through it do stand out.
Yeah, that program's called Project Lead the Way, and my son went through it. I have a freshman that's going through it now. Yeah, unfortunately, they're having some funding issues, and some of that has to do with potentially losing our athletic trainer this year and not having him going forward. Yeah, it's an incredible program. It's a whole new way to look at medicine, and at a minimum, look at biology and the way the world works around you. So it's a really incredible program. And I was at the music program last weekend and helped set up that program. And if there was anybody on video when the lights went out, I was the guy that turned the lights back on.
Well, and again, like speaking to those kids, I was right there by Mr. Jimenez, and the lights had gone off a couple of times, and I heard him say to the kids, the high schoolers, if the lights go out, keep playing. You are not stopping. And then the lights went out, and that Timmy Parker just kept going on his solo on his saxophone with the lights out. Yeah. And then they turned back on. And yeah, so again, it was just really fun.
Mr. Honey texted me, oh my God, what's going on? I'm like, I got it.
That may lead into, and who's on PHMS? You're PHMS. Their career days coming up. Did you know that on March 30th? So I wonder if that's a part of or it could be in the future, but I don't know if it's a part of that.
Yeah, and there's a lot of also larger national types of programs that might be great to bring attention to at a younger level for kids who maybe don't. I'm sorry if this is off topic from the agenda items, but College Bound or TRIO programs are for kids maybe who are first generation college students or something like that. And so they don't have the kind of support maybe at home from a parent who has been through that process before. So there's these national programs that they can access, and it might be great to find ways to bring those to people at a younger age and just make them aware of these programs, and bringing them in through career fairs or other things could be a good avenue for that.
I agree. I think there's a waiting list to get in the Project Lead the Way program as a freshman when you're applying. And I can't tell you how many athletes or parents have come to me and said, I didn't even know that project even existed. So I agree.
this will lead into my report. So Valhalla's report was they are actually wanting to request a crossing guard where there isn't one. So I suggested they go to the bike meeting that was canceled because of weather power or whatever. So trying to loop them in to that appropriate place. But I also attended the ABAR anti-bias, anti-racism meeting at the district office, and they talked about the HBCU fair it was all about. The meeting was really a presentation about 4 things the district is doing sort of around anti-bias and anti-racism. And one of them was the HBCU college fair that they, I believe, hosted at College Park this year. So that was really interesting. I will keep going and try to report back to this commission what is happening at the ABAR. At those meetings, the agenda item said that they were going to do action steps, but we went like 45 minutes over anyway and never got to action steps. So there's not a lot to report other than that. It was great, 4 great presentations of things that are happening in the district. None of them that I knew were specific to any Pleasant Hill schools, except for that the HBCU fair was held at College Park. It's good.
I'll also just say Gregory Gardens wants a crossing guard. So I was like, go to the meeting. We don't know if we have any, but we want more. So.
Okay, I think we're gonna have crossing guards on the next month's agenda again, with some city representation again. So that those are pertinent reports from your schools that want crossing guards. All right, let's move on to agenda item 12, announcements or correspondence. I don't know if we need more correspondence. We should start corresponding. I will make one announcement, and it is my term is up next month, and I have chosen not to reapply for another term after 4.5 years. And that is a hard decision. I won't spend a lot of time talking about it, but just feel like I need to spend some time on my school site, possibly helping out with the PTA PFC, but just also feel like I feel good about where the Education Commission is and excited about the future, but don't know that I have the time to continue on with another term. So next month, we will likely have on our agenda kind of deciding chair, vice chair going forward, since I will next month will be my last meeting. So that's an announcement.
Wow.
I should have brought it in correspondence. So
I have both correspondence and announcement.
okay, excellent.
So my correspondence was from Linda Waters. She used to be on the commission. And so she had reached out to me. She was kind of what we were just talking about, but she was a very strong advocate when she was on the commission for technical education and education that was like in trade education and advocating for that and doing job fairs related to that. And that was something that we didn't do as much during the pandemic for obvious reasons. And so she just sent a whole list of articles and some resources that she's still been tracking, even though she's no longer on the commission, and asked me to share them. So I guess I'll send them to you and then you can send them out. A lot of them have to do with just sort of all the new things that we're seeing about like Chat GPT and like other AI and how that will change the landscape of office workers and what that means about needing more skilled laborers that are doing things with their hands, and maybe the Education Commission thinking about that. So she corresponded with me and advocated for that. My announcement is also the same announcement that next meeting is my term is up and I have not renewed. So that will be my last meeting as well. I think I'm 11 years. So I'm really ready. But yeah, 10, something like that. So yeah, that would be the end of my term will be next meeting. So, yep.
I may be making the same. I am reapplying, but I have not heard. So I don't know if I will be, but I just came on, but I was finishing somebody else's term. So then I'm up for renewal. And do you know what the time frame is for, I know it was due like last week.
Yes, the nominating committee will meet, I believe, on April 26th. So you'll be invited to that to, talk about why you want to be on the commission again. and then they'll make their decision. I don't know how many people have applied for it, but since we have 2 other positions that are opening up, I am pretty sure we'll be okay.
There might be, and that's okay. I think we have one other open spot. We're full right now. We're full, and then
11 is the magic number.
11. Okay. But then I will come to the April meeting, and then I will not know if that will be my last meeting at that last meeting. So maybe I'll wear a tiara or something.
I would expect that if they have not made a decision by the April meeting, that your term would then just be extended to May at the
okay.
the least. But
Got it.
I'll let you know what I hear.
Got it.
I think as I'm thinking about this too, I'm drop all these things and run. But I know that some of this, how we fill these positions is written into the bylaws that we have are a project we've talked about multiple times is sort of looking at those and addressing some of those things. And I know there's probably certain reasons they're set up that way, but I wonder if I know when somebody leaves, somebody fills until the end of the term, but I wonder if in the future, thinking about ending terms at school end cycles, so at the end of the school term, instead of in the middle of a school term, would make more sense. I think it would make transitions easier for the commission as a whole if there wasn't end of terms in March, anyway.
With that, good idea. That will be revisited. It is 8:53, and we're going to adjourn our meeting for this evening. Thank you all for input, contributions, care, and concern for whatever our mission is, the quality of public education in Pleasant Hill.
We gotta go get our stuff.
We have to get our stuff. Have a good night.
Thank you.